If you like to talk about combat sports and you want to join the discussion, click the subscribe button below and the bell notification icon next to it and join Knucklehead Nation. What's going on, Knuckleheads? Welcome back to the FightersRep video podcast. Man, it feels like forever since we've been on. I couldn't make it on Monday. I want to apologize. Typically, we don't ever miss a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday at 7 p.m. But I was at Disneyland with the kiddos and with the fam, so you got to forgive me for that one. But today, we're back, and we're talking about George Groves Blasts Logan Paul versus KSI and Jake Paul versus AnEsonGib, the former super-middleweight titleist, just absolutely disgusted by what he's seeing become basically a farce in the world of combat sports, where they're bringing these silly YouTubers on to basically box and lining them up and putting them on the same cards as professional boxers. And of course, a pro boxer and a former champion like George Groves. I mean, who better to speak out against this silliness than a guy like George Groves? So, I wanted to make this video to see what you guys thought about this whole situation. I mean, should guys like Jake Paul and Logan Paul and KSI and these guys, should they be taking center stage on legitimate boxing cards with legitimate boxing contenders and champions on them? And should they be the main event on these cards? Shouldn't the promoters perhaps be doing more to sort of promote the actual fighters that are on the card and try to get them to the level of some of these YouTubers? Or is it a good thing that they're putting these YouTubers on the card in order to sort of bring up the popularity of the fight card in general and perhaps boost the popularity of their own fighters? For me, I'm sort of on the fence on this. For me, I've always preferred investing in the fighters, and I've always preferred investing in the young fighters. And I say that because even in a situation like Bellator, where you have, where you have a lot of legends that have sort of moved on, into the twilight of their career, but want to continue to compete, even those fights make me feel uneasy, because I say to myself, well, my goodness, there's so much young talent that needs to be produced, and there's so many eyes watching this card right now. Why aren't we focusing more on the young guys who haven't primed or are priming? Why are we wasting our time on these legends? I mean, so even in a situation like that, where it's guys that are actual MMA fighters but are just, a bit over the hill, I get a little bit concerned that the younger generation and the guys who need the boost are not going to get the boost. And I feel like in a situation like what Groves is talking about, where we've got these real boxers who are really struggling to make it, and we've got guys who are not even boxers but are being paraded around as boxers, headlining cards. I mean, I think that's more damaging even than the Bellator or, any other situation where you have older heads sort of competing in a sort of master's class, if you will, to bring a little bit of shine to the sport, because at least those guys are legends and can be respected. I mean, when you see a guy like Jake Paul or Logan Paul in there, and you see the difference in quality between the way that they fight and the way that the professionals fight, and you see the difference in pretty much, I mean, what it is it's entitlement. You see the disparity between these two. I mean, one of them, could have worked their entire career in boxing, taking shots to the head, may have CTE all in their brain, and they're all jacked up. And then on the other hand, you've got two guys who are making jokey videos on YouTube getting all the attention and all the love in the sport that the former guy has dedicated his entire life to and is now suffering, from traumatic brain injury because of it. And he's not getting the same sort of respect or being placed on the same sort of pedestal as these YouTube guys. And I think that is where George Groves has a problem with this. And I want to kind of take you guys through some of his comments, and I'd like to know what you guys think about it. He says, and this is, I guess he told this to After the Bell, so, whoever they are, credit to them. Perhaps there's some sort of news organization. I'm not sure, but it looks like he says, it's horrific, it's abysmal, it makes my skin crawl. Okay, and then he goes on to say, I can get on board with the entertainment value, but why is it called professional boxing? It's so demeaning. And, you got to respect a guy like George Groves, who's, been in there, put it all on the line. I think he's always, it's not him, but it's always Carl Froch that's bragging about how many people showed up at their rematch. And then, to put it all on the line like that, to finally achieve your dream after being knocked out in front of 80,000 people or whatever it was. This is a guy who really dedicated his life to boxing, so much so that, he was willing to come back even after being knocked out in front of everybody and talking a heap of trash. And he went through it all, this guy. This guy had a few shots at a title where he came up short, and a lot of people were thinking George Groves may never win a title, and he continued to push forward and sacrifice, no doubt because of his love for the sport, and was able to, finally achieve his dream. So, you can tell he's got a little bit of a protective streak running through him when he's making these comments. He goes on to say, how do you distinguish between Logan Paul and Demetrius Andrade? They're both professional boxers, both undefeated. So, I think what he's getting at there is that if you're going to call Logan Paul a boxer, a professional boxer, which all it takes is a license if we're being real, but if you're going to call him a professional boxer and he's undefeated and so is Demetrius Andrade, how do you distinguish them as a casual fight fan? That's a huge problem, and that's I guess a problem with perception, public perception, but it's a problem nonetheless, and I can see how that would take a hit, how boxing would take a hit when that happens. And everybody knows that it was KSI versus Logan Paul that headlined that Matchroom show on November 9th, and then it was Jake Paul and AnEsonGib headlining the show in Miami, and this is Matchroom Boxing. This is Eddie Hearn. This is the big time, you know what I mean? This is Anthony Joshua and Dillian White and everybody else. I've always considered Eddie Hearn to be probably the best promoter in the game right now, if we're being honest. But for him to be doing this, and to see George Groves' reaction to Eddie Hearn, who's doing this, obviously they're both out in the UK, it's very interesting, and I'd like to see how Eddie Hearn would sort of answer this, because for me personally, I don't like the idea. Listen, it would be a very, very hard sell for me. It would be a very, very hard sell for me. At the end of the day, promoting is about money. So you can't say that, Eddie Hearn is completely about the money in this situation, though, because at the same time, it brings a lot of shine to the card. So, is he doing the fighters a favor by having these YouTubers on the card? Is he damaging the sport by having the YouTubers on the card? Is he improving the sport by having them on because it's bringing so much more attention? It's almost like you're taking a hit at some hardcore fans in favor of gaining some casual fans, and obviously I have yet to be put in a situation where I have like a real celebrity on my show. I mean, the closest thing that I can think of for Fighters Rep is, I guess the closest thing I could think of is Anderson Silva's son, Gabe Silva, who fights for us. But obviously he's not any sort of celebrity. He's just related to one, right? But even then, I mean, it's not like he generates so much attention that I would put him on top of the card, As a matter of fact, we've got pros on top of the card, and Gabe Silva's still an amateur, so, it's not something I've come across yet. But, I mean, if Logan Paul and KSI or somebody else were to hit me up and want to compete on a Fighters Rep card, would I have them as the main event? I don't know, I don't know. I feel like I would definitely want them on the card just to generate attention and money, but I feel like this is a thing that I don't know if I would want to do it all the time. I feel like you would compromise your product, and now that Eddie Hearn's done it a couple times, is this going to become routine? I mean, that's another thing George Groves seems to be a little bit concerned about. Does this become routine? I think, ruminating on it a little bit, during this live chat, a thought just struck me, maybe put on one of these fights for each card, as long as it doesn't compromise and get in the way of any other actual fighter's career. I think as long as fighters are allowed to fight and compete and to continue to build themselves, maybe this thing does fit in somewhere. Again, as long as we're not disrespecting and lessening the opportunities for other fighters. And, unless there's like a bout limit that Eddie Hearn is being held to, I don't think that this would really take away too much opportunity. But again, at the same time, I can see what George Groves is saying, Boxing is a serious sport. It's to be taken seriously, and it's to be respected, and I don't know how I feel about these YouTubers jumping on there and fighting each other. So anyway, thank you guys for hearing me out on that. Before I read what's going on in the live chat, I want to thank you guys for subscribing. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon next to it. Like, comment, share, subscribe if you're watching on the replay. Feel free to donate in the links below or in the super chat, and get your Fighters Rep shirt by clicking the links below. Anything you buy from us is reinvested right back in to the promotion. As you guys know, Fighters Rep 9 is going down Friday, February 28, 2020, live from Seal Beach, California. It's right between LA and Orange County. So come on out, get your tickets at FightersRep.com. I'm expecting somewhere around the ballpark of 16 fights. The only Pro-Am kickboxing promotion in the state of California. So it's a big deal. We've got some fantastic fighters on the card. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff. It's all Fighters Rep. Also, I'm going to have one more ask for you guys, or actually two. If anybody's interested in sponsoring the Fighters Rep card or vending at the Fighters Rep shows, please get at us. You can just reach us through Instagram or email us at info@FightersRep.com. And also subscribe to the Savage Hour podcast. It's a podcast we're working on with Chad George. Extremely motivational, fight-related topic. Fight-related motivation and inspiration. So check it out. Subscribe to Savage Hour podcast on YouTube. So we've got Fight Life Nation in the chat, and he says, why on earth is George Groves complaining YouTubers are more relevant than Groves? I don't like Jake Paul, but they bring eyes, and this card was good. Farmer versus Diaz was a great fight. I agree, that fight was a lot of fun. Marco, I can see your point, but I think as a fight fan, you can see Groves' point too. I think what he's saying is he just doesn't want the respect towards the sport to be diluted in favor of some YouTubers, and doesn't think that maybe they should be placed on the main card. By the way, Shout out to Joybird, for the sponsorship. Be sure to follow them as well. They're going to be coming out with a product called Foxhound coming up soon. You want to check that out on Instagram. But for now, just follow them at Joybird on Instagram. They're going to be helping me keep the fighters hydrated and ready to go. So Fight Life Nation says you're going to invest in a guy that will give a good return. DAZN is looking for subscribers, and Jake Paul gets eyes. Well, that's true, and they are looking for subscribers, and I'm sure they're landing some with Jake Paul and Logan Paul. Fight Life Nation also says the problem I had with Logan Paul versus KSI was that the card was horrible. If Jake Paul brings more eyes to Joseph Diaz, that's a good thing. That I agree with, and that Jojo Diaz freaking Tevin Farmer fight was a barn burner, man, and Jojo Diaz really looked good in that fight. We'll talk about that in a bit. Fight Life Nation says George Groves is an old man who wants you off his lawn. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, he's not that old. He's just, he's done with boxing. He did his thing, and now he's enjoying, life after boxing. But, I can see what he's saying. He just wants to protect the sport that he really cares about. Lost One says, hey, man. Hey, Lost One, what's going on, brother? Appreciate you being on the chat. Subscribe if you haven't already. Fight Life Nation says, that was a stupid comment. You have to distinguish them by who they have fought. And he is, I think, referring to the Demetrius Andrade versus Logan Paul potential confusion when a casual is watching. Lost One says, I don't know what Groves said. Sorry, just got here. My only problem with it is having them before boxers who's been dedicated their life to it. And you see, that's the concern. That's the concern. What Lost One is saying right there is the concern. We don't want to take the focus away from the fighters that deserve it. We want the attention to go to the fighters. So, perhaps by having these guys on the card, if the fighters that deserve the attention and have dedicated to their lives to the sport, put on a great performance, maybe they'll make a ton of fans. At the end of the day, maybe this strategy works. I mean, I do believe that Eddie Hearn is one of the best, if not the best, boxing promoter in the world. And so I can't really blame him for trying to, do something new. That being said, do I think these guys are great fighters? Do I want to watch them fight? Not particularly. I'd much rather watch Tevin Farmer, Jojo Diaz, or somebody else. But, if it means getting more casuals on board and getting the fighters more attention, I'm not really that against that, 1992 says, you think YouTuber fights will expand other networks in the future or just on DAZN? I think these kind of fights can expand to any network, right? I mean, let's not forget, Dana White had CM Punk on UFC cards, right? So even though CM Punk is not a YouTuber, make no mistake, that was a gimmick fight. That was a celebrity death match. And, I mean, if it didn't serve a purpose and if it wasn't doing good, I don't think Dana White would have given him a second chance. So maybe there's something to this strategy. Fight Life Nation says, these fights aren't targeting you as a hardcore fan. He's trying to bring new eyes, money to DAZN. And that is something that I agree with as far as what he's doing. I do think that's what he's doing. And, can't really blame him too much for that. Although, I don't think Eddie Hearn needs that much attention. I don't know. Maybe DAZN is in need of more subscribers to that extent. Who knows? Who knows what's going on? But at the end of the day, maybe it's a good idea. 1992 says, I don't mind the YouTuber fights. I just don't want them to be the main events. 1992 also says, like this past one, I don't mind it. But the one last year, Haney should have been the main event. I think you're right about that. I think you're right about that, 1992. And by the way, please subscribe And hit the bell notification icon if you haven't already. We do this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7. Always something to talk about in combat sports, so feel free to join us. Lost One says, I think it's undeniable. It's good for the sport. Stick some more eyes on boxing, but don't let them jump the queue. And it isn't a situation where I think they're ever going to fight for a legitimate title. So I'm not really worried about them jumping the queue as far as earning opportunities. But maybe I'm worried about them jumping the queue as far as where they are on the card. Fight Life Nation says, George, I love you, but if Logan Paul headlined a Fighters Rep card, it would be huge. Huge for you and your brand and huge for kickboxing, as long as you're not changing the rules for celebs. Absolutely, and I appreciate you being so forthright with me on that, Marco. Obviously, it would be huge for us. I consider you to be part of the Fighters Rep team. And, I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. By the way, at our open workout, we will be doing an open workout on Saturday at Manny Robles' gym, the beautiful Knockouts Boxing Gym, run by Big J, Manny Robles, and Cesar Garcia. So we're going to be there at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Come on out if you guys want to come watch some of these young Fighters Rep warriors get warmed up and ready for February 28th, because it is going down on February 28th. If you guys can't make it and get your tickets on FightersRep.com, you could also watch for free right here on YouTube. And I would never change the rules for celebrities or anyone else. It's the unified rules, kickboxing rule set, and there's only one, brother. Lost One says, this is just a side thing to those YouTubers. Boxers, this is everything for them. Respect should be shown. I agree. As long as it's done tastefully and respectfully, I'd be okay with it. Fight Life Nation says, George, can you review who was on that DAZN card? I didn't watch since I canceled DAZN after the horrendous November Logan Paul card. Oh, my goodness. I'm not sure. I got to go back and check. I don't remember, but Tevin Farmer, Jojo Diaz was tight. 1992 says, so in general, do you think these YouTube fights will be sustainable for the years to come as long as the money is good, or do you think they'll eventually die down? I think we're classifying them as YouTube fights or YouTuber fights. But I think at the end of the day, they're just celebrity fights. They're high-profile celebrity fighters. Gimmicky fights. And we've seen this before. Mickey Rourke. CM Punk. Kimbo Slice versus James Toney. We've seen this before time and again, and I do think that these things are sustainable. These things are things that are going to keep happening in the fight game as long as a promoter believes that they're going to make more money out of it. Now, I think it's greedy and selfish if the promoter doesn't share that spotlight and that money and everything else with the fighters. If he keeps it all to himself, then I don't agree with it. But if it's something that's going to benefit the sport as a whole and benefit the fighters as well, and maybe afford them a little bit more money in the pay-per-views, then I don't see why not. Neil the Security says, what's up, champ? Hopefully I'm not too late to the party. No, man, you're good. Thank you for joining. Hit the subscribe button, the bell notification icon if you haven't already. Fight Life Nation says, George, regarding the respect being diluted, Pacquiao versus Bradley, Mayweather versus McGregor, and Adelaide Bird, mic drop. You're right about that, brother. You're right about that. And I'm glad you bring up Mayweather versus McGregor. That was the most gimmicky, non-deserving fight that we've ever seen. And also, one of the biggest fights in history. So, it's fantastic that Marco brings that up from Fight Life Nation. And, this is not going to stop. Now they're talking about maybe a Jorge Masvidal, boxing match versus, they've mentioned Canelo. They've mentioned, McGregor versus Pacquiao. This stuff is not going to stop. So, I think it's going to keep on going. But I was just interested to hear everybody's take about what George Groves said, because I can see where he's coming from, obviously. I mean, you got to be able to see where the guy's come from. He loved the sport enough to sacrifice his health for it and his safety for it and everything else. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, is it all bad? I think there is a real silver lining here. I think there's a lot of good, actually, that comes from this. And, you know, discussing this with you guys and getting your opinions, I appreciate that. You know, Fight Life Nation says it's already questionable regarding the respect in boxing. He says the Zone owes a lot of money to Canelo and some other fighters. They'll do anything to get that back. 1992, they will die down. It's a fad for sure, a way for these guys to make money. But celebs will always take a shot. And that I agree with. I mean, I think we're always going to see celebrities in the ring or in the octagon. And, you know, I don't think that's all bad. I think it's a lot more favorable when the celebrity can actually fight. But I don't think it's so bad as long as the fighters can benefit from it. And as long as the fighters are not disrespected by it. Fight Life Nation says, I'm being a Groves hater. He's right in principle, but money is bigger to promoters than principle. But, you know, at the same time, I think we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves and say money is greater than principle, right? Because me, I mean, I believe I've got more integrity in my finger than, you know, probably 99% of the people that I've had to deal with. But you know, as far as principle goes, I mean, if I feel like I'm in a situation where I can make a ton of money, you know, that's just going to help me help the sport, you know. So I'm not just looking for myself. I'm looking at investing in the sport. I'm looking at helping the fighters out, you know, because, I mean, if I've got $1 million to work with in purse money versus $10,000 to work with in purse money, I mean, you can bet that the purse money that's, you know, $1 million, I'm going to be a lot more generous with the fighters with that. And, you know, I think that plays into principle as well. I mean, money isn't just, you know, totally exclusive from principle in this equation. I mean, they go hand in hand, and you know, it's not either or. You know, it can be both, and that's why I like the idea of these celebrity fights, as long as they're done tastefully. Man, I think, you know, again, if any celebrities out there ever want to take a kickboxing match, you know, I'm happy to put you in there. Generate a lot of money and share the wealth and continue to invest in the promotion and build it up so I can continue to share the wealth and give these fighters a venue to compete in, you know, a place to hone their skills, a place to get the experience necessary to either, you know, become professional fighters for a living, or, you know, trainers, or open up a gym, or do whatever it is that they want to do. I mean, there are a lot of different things people can do in this sport once they go through it. So, you know, money facilitates that, you know. Money facilitates that. And whether we like it or not, money decides whether promotions are successful or not, and whether they continue or not. And that's just the way it is. And that's the way it's going to be forever. So, you know, I appreciate you guys on that one. So, knuckleheads, before I continue, I want to let you know again, we do this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We come up with a topic. You guys can always feel free to shoot us a topic on the channel, or on Instagram, or on Twitter, or wherever else. You can always feel free to shoot us a topic about something you want to hear discussed, and we can discuss it again Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific. Subscribe, comment, like, share, do everything all the great people of Knucklehead Nation do in order to join Knucklehead Nation. And, you know, that's pretty much all I have for you guys. I mean, we're about 30 minutes in. Man, I've had a long week, you guys. Again, I told you I wasn't on Monday because I had to go to Disneyland. It's also my first time dealing with the California State Athletic Commission, planning FightersRep 9. We are, if you look at their events list, the only kickboxing promotion on there. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that we're the only pro kickboxing promotion in the state. So, I'm definitely going to need everybody's help to make this a successful show and to continue the success of the promotion, God willing. And I've been working with CSAC, working with a couple, obviously, sanctioning bodies now, since we're also doing the amateurs with the IKF like we always do. And CSAC has been great. CSAC has been really great. And it's been interesting. I actually got to speak with the head of CSAC, Andy Foster, which was really cool. And they seem very supportive, and so I'm very excited about this card. I hope you guys are as excited about it as I am. Game Bred Fight TV says, congratulations, George. Coach Jay, I better see you on Saturday for the open workout with all those killers you're producing for me at CMMA Fitness. You guys, I definitely got to give a big shout out to Coach Jay, who's a Game Bred Fight TV. Definitely follow him on Instagram. I would just search for Juan Granillo. But obviously, he's a striking coach at CMMA, which is California Mixed Martial Arts. It's Chad George's gym. They won the last FightersRep Lions Cup. So, they're going to be coming into this defending champions as far as striking goes. And I'm very interested to see what Coach Jay has done with these young fighters at CMMA. Obviously, I go there to train. I see them in my peripheral. I see them in the background training hard. And they all look terrific. I think all the fighters on this card are terrific. All these camps are amazing camps. I think anybody who tunes in is going to see some of the best young fighters in the world go at it. And I'm really excited to have you on, Coach Jay. I know you're like an evil genius out there at CMMA, showing these kids the ropes, and it's going to be a hell of an event. Lost One says, what do you think of Kell Brook? Think he could come back? I think Kell Brook is a real quality fighter. I saw he's fighting DeLuca. Again, I think Kell Brook gets the win. I think Kell Brook is a quality fighter. Had he not been injured in the fights he was in with his, orbital bones given out on him, he would have probably, who knows, he might have beaten Errol Spence. And, he gave Triple G a hell of a fight. So, going up 2 weight classes to fight Triple G, so I've always had a lot of respect for Special K, Kell Brook. I think he's a badass. He beat Sean Porter, who's got a title right now. I think he's a special talent. I just think he is coming off a couple of losses. And, he's got to get back in the win column, get his confidence right. But anyway, Knuckleheads, I appreciate you guys joining me. We will do this again on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Typically, we stay on for about an hour. But, I've got a lot to do right now. So, I'll be back on Wednesday to come chat your ears off. But, until then, appreciate you guys joining the chat. Again, be sure to join Wednesday, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. and immediately after the big fights. And until then, Knuckleheads, keep it clean. I'm out of here. Much love to you guys.